Have you ever dropped out of college and wondered, will I still have a shot at life? I've been there. Standing outside a grocery store, applying for a cashier job with an old laptop in my backpack. Today, the tech company I founded operates in 22 states. My name is Eric Collins. I was born in Toledo, Ohio, a place where everyone seems to know each other, and the only way out of poverty, people believed, was to go to college, land a stable job, and stay out of trouble. I grew up in a working-class family. My mom was a night shift nurse. My dad worked in an auto repair shop. Neither of them had a college degree, but they believed I'd be the first in the family to earn one. Even as a kid, I was obsessed with anything that ran on electricity. I'd take apart remote controls, rebuild old game consoles, and once I even shorted out the living room socket, which made my dad furious for a whole week. But that didn't stop me. I was fascinated by how tiny microchips could run the whole world. I got into a public university, majoring in computer science. But just 2 semesters in, I knew it wasn't the right fit for me. Endless theory-heavy lectures with no real-world application, outdated textbooks, and rising tuition every semester. I was working part-time at a cafe to stay afloat, but I still couldn't afford my textbooks. It felt like I was drowning. And worse, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. After one exhausting night shift, I sat at my computer and submitted my withdrawal request. When I hit submit, I cried. Not because I was scared, but because it felt like I was betraying everything my family had hoped for. I had no degree, no connections, no clear plan, but I had one thing no one could take from me: a passion for technology. The first few weeks after dropping out, I felt like I was drifting. No more classes, no schedule, no classmates, and worst of all, no dream left to cling to. I lived in a small rented apartment with 2 old friends. All 3 of us survived on low-wage manual jobs. I did whatever I could find, delivering packages, cleaning stockrooms, restocking shelves at retail stores. Without a degree, I was rejected from most skilled positions, even internal roles at tech companies I once dreamed of joining after graduation. Each month, I scrambled to pay rent, utilities, and credit card debt left over from school. There were times I thought about going back to college. Not because I wanted to, but because I was scared I wasn't good enough to live any other way. I remember sitting in an interview for a call center job. When the recruiter asked, "So, why did you drop out?" I froze. Sweat broke out on my forehead. I couldn't answer. I also had to face the quiet disappointment from my parents. They didn't say anything directly, but I could tell. They thought I had ruined my future. My mom texted me once, "If you need to come home, your room's still here." But I didn't want to go back. I would have rather slept on a cold floor than admit to myself that I had failed. During those sleepless nights, I would pull out my old laptop and dive into tech forums. I read stories from self-taught programmers, people who had also hit rock bottom but found a way up. I didn't know them, but I felt like they were cheering me on. Somewhere online, someone believed you could learn to code without a degree. I clung to that fragile hope. With no mentor, no college network, no professor to turn to, I started teaching myself from scratch. My first lines of code were messy and full of errors, but they were proof of one thing: I hadn't given up. I worked in a cold warehouse from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but every night, from 7 p.m. until nearly dawn, I sat in front of that old laptop. My hands trembled from the cold, but my mind was on fire. I studied on FreeCodeCamp, Codecademy, and eventually switched to MIT's OpenCourseWare. I typed out every line of code manually, no copying and pasting. Fixing a small bug on screen felt like winning a battle. There were no A's, no teachers to praise me, just me, and a quiet sense of progress I felt in every sleepless night. I also started joining online communities, Reddit, Stack Overflow, and a small Discord group for self-taught coders in the Midwest. We shared bugs, real-world lessons, and our honest fears. Are we just wasting our time? But in those late-night chats, I slowly realized something. There were a lot of people like me, no degrees, no health insurance, no safety nets. But we had one thing in common: a passion for tech and a hunger to change our lives. I built my first app, a simple tool to help part-time workers track their hours. It wasn't pretty. It didn't make money. But for the first time, I'd created something that could actually help someone. One friend tested it at his workplace and said, "This calculates my pay more accurately than my manager's spreadsheet." That's when it hit me. Passion wasn't just what kept me alive. It was what gave my life meaning. I started to believe in the path I was on, even if it was strange, exhausting, and lonely. Each line of code was a brick, and I was building a future, one I didn't need permission for. I wasn't learning for grades anymore. I was learning to understand, to build, and to become someone who created real value. But I knew I couldn't just stay in my room coding forever. If I wanted to grow, I had to start working on real projects, things that people actually needed. My first real opportunity came from a guy named Luis, who I met in the self-taught Discord group. He ran a small auto shop in Indianapolis and said, "If you can build a simple website for customers to book appointments, I'll pay you $300. $300 didn't seem like much. But to me, it was massive. It was proof that my code could create real value. It took me almost 2 weeks to finish that site. It was simple, a little buggy, but it worked. When Luis sent the payment through PayPal, I cried. I also started attending free tech meetups in Chicago. Each trip took almost 3 hours on a Greyhound bus. I wore an old dress shirt, brought my laptop, and carried handwritten notes. I wasn't from Stanford or MIT, but I came to learn, to listen, and to connect. At one event, I chatted with a back-end developer from a startup called GrainTrack. When I mentioned I was self-taught, he smiled and said, "We need people with your kind of drive. I'll let you know if something opens up." Less than 2 months later, I got an email from him. GrainTrack was looking for a freelancer to build an internal tool. I didn't think I was good enough, but I applied anyway. And to my surprise, they picked me. For real. I learned more in those 3 months than I had in an entire year of studying on my own. I also started blogging, sharing my journey, not to brag, but to remind myself that every small step matters. And to my surprise, I began receiving emails from strangers. "Your story made me believe I could start over from zero too. From a damp, rented room, from late-night study sessions on a dying laptop, I stepped out into the real world and started building something of my own. Not with a degree, not with a transcript, but with the courage to try, fail, and try again. I had no professors, no official curriculum, but I had the internet and a kind of drive no university could teach. I had to save myself. I started learning with a strategy. No more hopping from course to course. I focused on practical skills. JavaScript, React, Node.js, and SQL. Every freelance gig became a real-world test. Not a test to pass a class, but a test to survive. I still remember the first time I was assigned to rewrite an inventory management module for a food startup. I had never done anything that big. The first 5 days were a disaster. Buggy code, sync issues, poor performance. But I didn't give up. I turned to YouTube, searched for in-depth tutorials, read original framework documentation, and most importantly, I asked questions. I learned how to humbly ask the right people the right way without fear of judgment. And through that process, I realized skills don't come from learning enough. They come from repetition. Build, fail, fix, rebuild better. I also learned Git, version control, and how to write documentation that others could understand. That mattered to companies, and I couldn't afford to be seen as unprofessional just because I was self-taught. Every skill I learned, from software architecture to professional email writing, gave me something even more valuable: belief in my own capabilities. I began to see that I wasn't just someone who wrote code. I was someone who solved problems with technology. And that was the shift, from passionate hobbyist to professional. I still remember when my 4th project failed completely. It was a small app to help users track their personal spending. Something I agreed to build for a Reddit client for $1,200. Way too much for someone with my experience at the time. I was confident. I thought I was good enough after 3 successful projects. But the truth was, I didn't fully understand user needs, I didn't know how to manage time, and I couldn't write scalable code. When I delivered the product after 3 weeks, the client said just one thing: "This is not what we agreed on." They canceled the contract. I didn't get a single dollar. And worse, I felt like a fraud. That was the first time I closed my laptop and left it untouched for 3 days. I felt like I was fading. Alone, no mentor, no classmates, no degree to fall back on. I even considered getting a night shift job at Target, just for some stability. But then I remembered why I started. Not for money, but because I wanted to create value. I wanted to prove that you could survive in tech without a degree. That failure wasn't the end, it was a lesson. A painful lesson about listening to the client, writing clear documentation, and never accepting a project you don't fully understand. So I started again. Smaller projects. I tracked every hour, learned to ask the right questions, and spent real-time testing before delivery. After every failure, I wrote down 3 lessons I'd learned. That notebook still sits in my desk drawer. I gradually understood. Success doesn't come from avoiding failure. It comes from how you respond when it hits. And I chose to get back up. I never thought my life would change because of a single comment on an old tech forum. That day, I had just finished a tiny browser extension to help coders like me manage tabs more efficiently. And I shared it on a subreddit for fun, hoping a few people might try it out. But overnight, my extension hit the top. Over 3,000 upvotes. TechCrunch left a comment asking for more info. An angel investor from Seattle messaged me. I see potential here. Let's talk. I didn't sleep that night, not from fear, but because for the first time someone believed in what I built. No degree. No business card. Just the product. The Zoom call lasted 45 minutes. I pitched my idea for a platform to help remote workers manage their time and workspace. Something I had struggled with myself as a freelancer. The investor said one line after I finished. If you build this the way you just described, I'm in. I turned off the camera, stared at the black screen, and cried like a kid. Not because of the money, but because after all these years of wandering, I could finally see my destination. Clearly, that was the moment I decided, I'm done freelancing. I'm going all in to build my own product. Not because I want to be a CEO, but because I've come too far to turn back, and I owe it to myself to live this dream for real. I didn't start my company in a fancy office or with a 6-figure bank account. It all started in the corner of my kitchen. My old college laptop was my first office. My first co-founder? A guy I met on Hacker News, living in Kansas, working nights at FedEx. We had no process, no pitch deck, but we had something more important. Belief that the product we were building would solve a real problem. Those first months were hell. I worked from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. every single day. The rest of the time I was filing paperwork, learning how to respond to investor emails, reading up on business law, and learning how to say no to free advice soaked in doubt from relatives. Someone asked me, "Who do you think is going to use this? Slack already does it well." Others scoffed. "Without a college degree, how do you expect to raise investment?" I heard it all, but I didn't stop. I started learning how to raise capital. My first pitch deck was a disaster, confusing, no clear revenue stream, no business model. But I listened to the feedback, adjusted, and tried again. By the 5th attempt, I raised $50,000 in angel investment, just enough to hire one more engineer and start testing our beta version. I also learned how to build a team based on trust, not just salaries. The first people who joined me were those searching for something meaningful, just like I was. We used Zoom, Notion, Trello, and even 1 a.m. calls to squash bugs together and dream about a product that could reshape how people work remotely. I won't lie, there were days I doubted myself. But then I'd remember, this isn't just a startup. This is my journey to prove that passion can beat prejudice. And every line of code I wrote, every early user who tested our product, every piece of feedback, those were the bricks that rebuilt the dream I thought I'd lost when I dropped out of school. One of the most important things I've learned throughout this journey is that there hasn't been a single day where I didn't learn something new. That might sound exaggerated, but it's true. From managing a team, fundraising, to optimizing code, I've never once felt like I knew it all. I had to adapt quickly. While others had strong academic foundations, I had to navigate things no school had ever prepared me for. How to negotiate with investors, manage stress, and truly understand what users need, not what I think they need. At one point, we decided to manage our product development using Agile. even though I barely understood the methodology. I just knew the best startups used it. So I dove in, watched online tutorials, enrolled in short courses, read books, and sought advice from other founders. Every time we hit a roadblock, I went back to Agile's core principles. Listen, adapt, and improve. The path wasn't easy. Sometimes we ran into unexpected failures. One time, after an update, a major bug locked thousands of users out of their accounts. I realized that as a founder, I wasn't just responsible for vision. I had to lead my team through storms. It was tough balancing urgent bug fixes with keeping morale up. But I learned every crisis taught me something new about crisis management, customer empathy, and patience with myself. No crisis is wasted if you know how to learn from it. And the better you learn, the further you go. That's why I dedicate at least 1 hour a day to learning, whether through books, podcasts, or articles from those who've been there. In tech, continuous learning isn't optional. It's survival. The first steps may be clumsy and full of setbacks. But if you keep at it, learning constantly, adapting fast, you can build an empire from zero. I'm not your typical leader, at least not in the way most people picture a tech startup CEO. I'm not stern. I don't wear suits. I don't run endless meetings. I don't expect blind obedience. To me, leadership is about creating an environment where everyone can contribute and grow. When working with my team, I always encourage questions, experimentation, and remind them it's okay to fail. I believe every person on the team can make a difference if they're trusted and given room to grow. One of the best decisions I made was to build an open culture where anyone could share ideas without fear of judgment. When someone proposes something new in a meeting, I never shut it down immediately. Instead, I encourage discussion, debate, and creative exploration. Over time, that culture paid off. My team didn't work just for a paycheck. They believed in the vision. Everyone in the company wasn't just an employee, but part of a bigger story, one they helped write every single day. But leadership isn't just about inspiration. Sometimes it means stepping up during hard times. When the company faced financial or operational struggles, when everything felt like it might fall apart, I couldn't just sit back and wait. I had to lead from the front, take responsibility, and make sure my team never felt abandoned. I tried to lead by example, share the risk, and work just as hard, if not harder, than anyone else. And that made a difference. Every time we made it through a challenge, the team grew stronger, more united, and more confident. That's when I realized leadership isn't about commanding others. It's about building an environment where everyone can thrive and contribute to something greater. Looking back on this startup journey, I can't help but feel proud of what we've accomplished. What started as a tiny idea in a cramped room, over 5 years, has grown into a tech startup with real industry influence. One of the biggest milestones was launching our first official product, a software tool designed to help small businesses optimize their operations. At first, I wasn't sure if the market would respond. But when positive feedback started coming in from customers, we knew we were on the right track. Within a year of launch, we signed over 200 clients and secured investment from a major venture capital firm. That funding didn't just solidify our finances. It opened the door to partnerships with big names in tech. That was the moment I realized we weren't just a small startup anymore. We had earned a place on the map. To get there, we overcame countless challenges. Moving from product development to scaling operations was a tough transition. Our growth and marketing strategies didn't always work. We had to refine our business model, rework our approach to customer engagement, and constantly test new ideas. But it was those very failures and the lessons we drew from them that made us more resilient. And that same year, I received an invitation to speak at a major industry conference, where I was asked to share our journey and how we built the company. My story. This was the first time I ever stood in front of such a large crowd, and the pride I felt in what we had built was beyond words. I realized then that it wasn't just me. Our entire team deserved to be recognized. Our achievements weren't just about numbers, they were about the change we sparked in the industry. Our company has helped thousands of small businesses streamline their operations, save time, and boost productivity. That made me feel that even without a college degree, I was still able to create something truly valuable for society and our community. Success doesn't come from talent or luck alone. It comes from persistence, learning from mistakes, and most importantly, the unwavering dedication of an entire team. Those are the things I always hold close when I look back on this journey. Looking back, I realize everything started with a tiny dream. I remember the moment I decided to drop out of college. My passion for technology was the only flame that burned brightly inside me. Even without a diploma, I believed that passion could take me anywhere I wanted to go. I dreamed of building a company that wasn't just a place to work, but a place for creativity, a space where fresh ideas could thrive. Today, our company, with its products helping small businesses operate more efficiently, is the result of relentless effort. But to be honest, I never thought I'd make it this far. In the early days, I just hoped for a small job in tech, or at least the chance to create something useful for someone. As I reflect on the challenges I've overcome, from self-teaching outside of textbooks to building a company from scratch, I understand more clearly that the formula for success is rarely obvious. It's not a straightforward path. It's built on failures, sleepless nights, tough decisions, and a constant willingness to learn. What's special is that throughout this journey, I never gave up on my dream. Every time I felt exhausted, I reminded myself why I started, not for money or fame, but to build a company that would create long-term value, help others, and drive innovation in the tech industry. The further I've gone, the more I've realized that persistence and passion are what kept me going, even when things seemed impossible. And now, as I look at the company we've built, I know I haven't just fulfilled my own dream. I've helped create a space where others' dreams can flourish too. My teammates, those who have walked this path with me, can now see their own dreams coming true. I'm not just a company founder. I'm living proof that you can break from the traditional academic path and still succeed. Even without finishing college, I found my own way, a path that led me to the freedom and success I always dreamed of. Looking back at my journey, one thing stands out. There is no easy path, but as long as you don't give up, everything is possible. People say big dreams are only for those born into privilege or special opportunities. But I'm here with a different story. Starting from zero, dropping out of college, I've proven that passion and perseverance can take you anywhere. I wasn't born into wealth or with powerful connections. I was just an ordinary person with an extraordinary dream, and that dream helped me overcome every challenge. It was my love for technology, my refusal to quit, and my endless curiosity that took me from being a dropout to founding a successful tech company. If you're facing tough decisions or challenges that seem impossible, I want you to know this: you're not alone. So many of us, just like me, have faced doubt, financial struggles, and failure. But I made it through because I refused to let those things define me. I focused on growing, and I never stopped believing in what I could do. If I could do it, so can you. Don't let limitations or a lack of credentials hold you back. Start with what you have. Learn, persevere, and never stop chasing your dream. Don't be afraid of failure. It's the stepping stone that helps you grow stronger and wiser. Remember, the only things you truly need to succeed are passion and perseverance. Every small step will bring you closer to your goals. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize the journey was worth it. Not just because it changed your life, but because it could inspire others too. If there's one lesson I've learned from this journey, it's this: persistence is everything. No matter where you start or what resources you have, you'll face many obstacles. But instead of letting them stop you, you have to learn how to rise after every fall and keep moving forward. Here are a few pieces of advice I want to share with you. Those who are still trying to find their way in this ever-changing and challenging world. 1. Start right where you are. Many people think they need everything lined up to begin: money, resources, degrees. But the truth is, you don't need to wait for the perfect opportunity. Start with what you've got. Have an old laptop? Great, learn to code or develop a skill you're passionate about. Don't let your current situation hold you back, because every small step will move you closer to your goals. 2. Keep learning, never stop growing. One of the best things I ever did was take advantage of online resources. The internet is a powerful tool. You can learn any skill you need. There are thousands of free and paid courses, from programming to business management. Even without a degree, practical skills are what matter. It takes patience and time, but what you learn will carry you farther than any academic credential. 3. Don't fear failure, learn from it. Failure is inevitable, but what really matters is what you learn from it. I failed many times while building my company. There were moments I thought I couldn't go on, but I always took something valuable from those mistakes. Every failure is a lesson. Don't let it defeat you. Use it as a chance to improve and grow. 4. Build your network. Even though I started my company from nothing, I always made an effort to connect with like-minded people. The people you meet along the way can help you go farther. They're not just business partners. They're your support system, your motivators, your collaborators. Remember, one person can go fast, but a team can go far. Invest in relationships that lift you up and share your vision. Openness, sharing ideas, and learning from one another are essential elements of the entrepreneurial journey. 5. Always believe in yourself. And finally, the most important thing, you must believe in your own abilities. You may face a lot of doubt from others, especially when you choose a path that goes against the norm. But don't let those doubts shake your confidence. You are the only one who truly understands your goals, and only you can make them happen. No matter how hard it gets, remember, your journey is yours alone, and you absolutely have what it takes to succeed.